EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. It's mandatory minicamp day here for the Philadelphia Eagles. Johnny Mack will be heading down to the NovaCare post-show today. John, how you doing on this Tuesday morning on the one and only day of mandatory minicamp?
Yeah.
Should be called mini day.
Yeah, you shouldn't be able to call something a camp if there's only one day of practice. But, labeling is a problem with the NFL, so it doesn't
even
surprise
summer camp as a kid wasn't called camp unless it was multiple days.
But it is what it is. Mandatory minicamp, 1 day, last chance to see the Eagles, reporters, at least for reporters, until training camp, which will begin late July, most likely. First practice will be July 22nd, tentative, but most likely a little bit earlier this season because the first preseason game is a little bit earlier. So, you'll get about a 5-week break, which is a little bit less than normal, but last chance today to see all the hype.
All excited for the hype. Plenty of stuff. The Eagles have already had 6 OTAs. So OTAs are organized team activities is what that's short for. So those 6 are in the rear view. Now this is their first mandatory. So it should be a good opportunity, John, to see some of the guys that, some of the veteran players who weren't there for, the OTAs, Landon Dickerson, Lane Johnson, Devontae Smith. I know we saw Lane, I think one of the OTAs, but it should be a good opportunity, John, to see those guys as well. That's exciting.
Yeah, it is. And it is obviously attendance will be a big thing. I don't foresee any problems, but you never know in the NFL. It's typically not an issue for the Eagles, but anytime something mandatory pops up, it's more notable if somebody isn't there. So, and there always could be extenuating circumstances, but that's number one is attendance. And I expect everybody to be there. So that's been the Eagles' history. Everything's copacetic. They're the Super Bowl champions. No obvious contract angst, as there has been at times in the past, and there is at times around the NFL. So everything should be fine from that standpoint. And it's about what happens on the field. And, same thing as OTAs, though, from the standpoint. Because I did get a question on social media about how does Antoine Powell-Ryland look, who's the got the biggest upside of the rookie on offensive lineman. And I'm like, they don't have pads on. What are you going to do? When you got a guy like Powell-Ryland, who the whole point is had this tremendous production in college, but he's very small for an edge rusher. Arm length is not indicative of what typically is a successful edge rusher. So those are the things you have to see and you have to decipher, and those don't come into the equation until you have big offensive linemen on the other side with pads on. And how can he overcome it? And vice versa, the same thing with guys like Miles Hinton and Cam Williams and even Holland Pearson as an undrafted guy. Well, they can't show their physicality at this stage. It's a glorified passing camp, and that's why we focus mainly on the passing game, because that's what it's about. Even the running backs. I remember last year.
I remember that too.
Saquon was like, all right, just go run out and, run a wheel route or just stay at the line of scrimmage and be a decoy. It's a passing camp. So you got to realize what it is, first off.
That sparked some awesome Johnny Mack Zander debates on how much will Saquon be used in the passing game,
Yeah.
which was not very much. Johnny Mac won that one. Good stuff, Johnny Mac. John, the one thing I do want to get out there for information for the people is, and this is all managed in the CBA, but they are mandatory today, as we mentioned here. And, like John said, there's no contract disputes or anything in Philly right now. The last one was Dallas Goedert, which has obviously been resolved. But any player who misses a day of mandatory minicamp this week will be fined $17,462 and more on subsequent days. So now the Eagles only have one day, so that's it. That's the most they can be fined. But if you miss all 3 days in another camp, it would be $104,768. So expect everybody to be there today. I don't think anybody wants a $17,000 fine just for not showing up on a Tuesday. But one day, Johnny Mac, where was Devontae Smith training? Is he back in Louisiana?
Florida. He's in Tampa.
Florida. Yeah, he's got to fly up from Florida for one day.
He's coming out. He's coming up anyway because he's got his softball game up in Allentown. He always does. So,
that's right.
He does that. So he was.
When is that the softball game?
It's usually June. I can look it up, but usually later in June. So it is this month. But so he's probably coming back up anyway. He'll probably stay, and that was the whole plan, my guess, because of the softball stuff and things like that. So that's just a guess, though. Yeah, we'll probably talk to Devontae today, by the way. But
good stuff there. So that is mandatory. Expect everybody there, which is a good sign. John, I do want to run through some of the pressing questions that we have going into minicamp. Now, we've hit on all of them, every single one of them, multiple times, but we're going to hit on them again here. We're going to refresh everybody, get them set for minicamp, which is today, and then we have that 5-week layoff around there. We'll see what the actual final week number is. But John, going through, let's start with the depth chart, and we can just go to that offensive side of the ball. So far, it's been Tyler Steen has been your top right guard. We'll see if he can hold on to that going into spring. But John, there is a lot of bodies on that offensive line, man. So there's going to be plenty of competition for Tyler Steen. But right now, it is his job to lose.
Yeah, it is June 28th, by the way, for the Devontae Smith celebrity softball game. If people want to go up to Allentown and check that out. Yeah, Tyler Steen is going to get every opportunity, it looks like, to win this job. Same thing happened last year, and he didn't win it. So, and part of that reason is injury, because he was taking every first team rep in training camp until he sprained his ankle. Was forced to miss about 9-10 games, and that's when they inserted Mekhi Becton. Mekhi kind of took off with it. So I think if it goes more smoothly, well, two things, but if it goes more smoothly, I think Steen goes through the entire camp and is the starter week 1. Mainly for the health, but also because you don't have that sort of obvious backup with like Mekhi Becton who took it off. Now you can talk about Kenyon Green because of the pedigree, but he did not play well in Houston.
No,
and I think a lot of people
from him yet. You saw him out there. You don't see much from offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, the negative was that instead of being the backup right guard, he's the backup left guard. So I don't know if that's positive.
Yeah. I mean, even though, like, just thinking back to last year, you might not have seen Mekhi Becton play, but the one thing you could say is, holy shit, if that dude has any talent, he's going to be good, because that dude is a beast. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you see.
Yeah, well, I think the thought of Mekhi was he was too big to play inside. Right. But I don't think anybody doubted the talent level of Mekhi Becton. See, to me, the difference between Mekhi had a lot of injury issues with the Jets and still with the Eagles. He's got an issue with his knee. But I don't think anybody ever said Mekhi Becton wasn't talented. He's the 11th pick in the draft. And you can say, well, Kenyon was the 15th pick in the draft. But Mekhi never played as poorly when he was on the field as Kenyon Green. Not even close. There were times Mekhi played pretty well. So I think most of the angst with him was injury related, and then part of guys that tackle. I mean, the fact that he's playing guard still is phenomenal. Crazy to think about it. And when they brought him in, you thought, all right, he's going to be the swing tackle. And I think that's what the Eagles thought. And that Tyler would win the right guard job, but didn't work out. And they went in a different direction, and it did work out beautifully for the Eagles. This time around, I don't think you have that security blanket that's nearly as potential upside as Mekhi Becton was. So we'll see. The younger guys, same thing with Miles Hinton and Cam Williams and even Holland Pierce, if you want to go there. They've proven they can move those big bodies if they want, but they're all rookies. They don't have experience at right guard, so you would think. So Matt Pryor, to me, is the guy, the insurance policy. And not as high as an upside as Mekhi Becton, but, I think he's probably the Eagles' best right guard. And I think he'd give you competent play if you needed it. And I think he'd be better here than he was in Chicago because he gets to play between, Lane Johnson and Cam Jurgens. So
yeah, I'm in the John McMullen line of thinking here. I think Matt Pryor is going to be your right guard come week 1 of the NFL season, but we will see how it shakes out. 86 days away from the start of that NFL season. John, did they trade CJ Gardner-Johnson for a camp body? Does that have anything to do with, does that just show you that they really just wanted to get CJ out of here? Or do they really believe in Kenyon Green to some extent? How do you view that now? I don't know.
No, I don't think he's I don't think he's a camp body as a guy just here to get cut. I think he could get cut, but I think the hope is that Jeff Stoutland can untap what a lot of people, including the Eagles, saw back when he was drafted 15th overall, because the Eagles had a lot of interest in him at that particular time. So he's definitely got talent. And I think the hope is that Jeff can unlock it. So I don't think he was just brought in as a dump and they're just going to move on.
Yeah, maybe not, but I do feel like it was just an added bonus. They tried to find a team that would take on the CJ Gardner-Johnson contract and trade with them. And once they did, it was, yeah, we'll take him. That's good.
Yeah, but the CJ stuff had more about the cash, but and the personality. I would say cash first, personality second.
But didn't they but you do have to find 2 to tango, right? With that. So once they found that team, I mean, there may be in other teams, but I don't know. Maybe there wasn't so many teams that were interested in the trade for Gardner-Johnson.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's pretty decent contract for his production level. So, depends on the level of competence you have bringing somebody like that into your locker room. And D'Amico Ryans is young enough and a former player that he probably thinks he can manage it. And we'll see how it shakes out. I mean, already you can see some of the CJ-isms coming out. It wasn't an off for the most part, voluntary work, which, again, it's voluntary. But typically when you're with a new team, it's expected you get involved at least some point. And he showed up at mandatory camp, which obviously he's not going to get fined, but
right.
And that's not in the big picture. I don't think CJ needs it. But you'd probably like a high profile veteran coming in to be at voluntary camp if at all possible. But yeah, I expect them to have the honeymoon period. You basically get 1 year with CJ, and then it blows up.
Then you realize that it wasn't the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. We'll see what ends up happening there. We'll see what ends up happening here at right guard and whether Kenyon Green can do anything or if Tyler Steen will hold off the competition and win the right guard spot. We'll get a little bit of a look at that today, but not much because it's an offensive lineman. Obviously, we've talked about that. John, let's move on to safety. Sidney Brown, Drew Makuba, and Tristan McCullum, and yes, I am going to name Tristan McCullum because Vic Fangio named Tristan McCullum, are competing for that starting safety job, Johnny Mac. Last week they lined Sydney up, I believe, first next to Reed Blankenship. They also had Andre Sam in there. They also had Lewis Seen in there from the Georgia boy that they traded for. Where'd they get Lewis Seen? They trade for him or they picked him up?
They signed him off Buffalo's practice squad.
Yeah, Buffalo's practice squad. So all five, John, got a chance next to Reed Blankenship last week at the OTAs. What do you see at that spot? A lot of names, Sydney, Drew, and Tristan really vying for that first spot.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear they want Drew Makuba on the field as quickly as possible, and we'll see if they can get there. I do think his traits are sort of exactly what Vic wants in a safety, so it's understandable why the Eagles drafted him. But he was drafted number 64 overall, which is, the last pick in the second round. So you're one pick away from being Tyler Steen at 65, and then you're forever a third round pick. So I think those labeling, as I mentioned, is often a problem.
Yes.
There's a big difference between somebody like Landon Dickerson, who's picked at the top of the second round, versus somebody picked at the bottom of the second round. But, he's very athletic, high football IQ, has a natural feel in coverage. He had an interception. Boy, I forget the game where he peeled off as a robber. Eagles think that was the best interception in college football last season. He's got really innate coverage skills, and that's what Vic wants first and foremost. And then he plays way more physical than his body type would indicate, which could be a concern, to be honest, because he throws his body around. So I think from a mentality standpoint, he can help you in run support, but 5'11", 186, can you hold up in the NFL from a physical perspective? And they might be giving him some weight when they 186.
He's a guy that I think will grow into his NFL body, John. I think he'll be 200 maybe in a year or two, though.
I don't see that happening. He doesn't have the frame to add that kind of weight. Now, he might get 190, 195, but that's the thing. Like certain guys, like Alex Hunt's got a frame where he can add a bunch of weight.
Brown even got a big-ass frame for a guy in that position, too.
Yeah, he's kind of short, too, Makuba. So I don't think he has the frame to turn into a 205-pound guy. I do expect him to get stronger, get in an NFL weight room, and maybe that's enough. But he's always going to be undersized. It's
can you clarify on a comment like this? Because I don't think this is what you're saying at all, but maybe this is how people take it. Kakoa says you want a guy that throws his body around at that position. I think you do. I don't think that's what John is saying the concern is. I think the concern is when you throw around your body and you're that size.
You just saw it with Avonte Maddox
player who's built like a machine. Your body might break down a little bit. I think that's the concern, Kakoa. You definitely do want a guy like that, though.
Oh, no, I thought I said, he's got the mentality for it, but can you hold up? Avonte Maddox plays the same way.
Right.
And he almost the exact same size. He had a lot of injury issues, and a lot of them were because he threw his body around like he was 20 pounds heavier.
Right.
So, that's can you hold up playing that way, that style in the NFL? Very difficult to do when you're that undersized.
Sidney Brown, John, what do you expect for him this year?
Yeah, I don't know. We're going to see, because I don't necessarily think he's a big type of player.
Too much
remember,
freelance?
he was drafted before Vic got here. More of a traditional box safety, which is not, I think at one point Howie said that doesn't even exist anymore in the NFL, which is not a good sign. And at least in the Eagles' mentality, they'd prefer the rangy cover guy. But then you look at the physical aspects. I mean, Sydney's let's see, he's listed at 211, rock solid.
Yeah.
I mean, from a physical perspective, like he's everything you want. A little bit shorter, similar to Drew there. But from a physicality standpoint, obviously you've seen him. Got to go back to really his rookie season, but you see how he plays. I forget, Reed called him one of the video game characters. I forget what he used. He just bounces around.
Yeah. Which I think is a good thing, but also is a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes he's got to play a little bit. Sometimes he's a little bit out of control. And he needs to earn Vic's trust. We talk about like discipline is a big thing with Vic.
Right.
And he, so he's got to get better there. And he's got to prove that's the biggest thing for Sidney Brown. He's got to prove to Vic Fangio that he's going to be disciplined and he's going to stay, to do your job mentality and don't be freelancing and things like that. And also the coverage aspect of it. He's got to prove that he can handle coverage because that's what this defense is based on, basically.
Yeah, right. And that's not particularly his strong suit, is it?
No, I mean, if you go back 10 years, he's a box safety.
Right.
That's what he is. And he played, even if you look at a rookie now, he played most of his snaps in nickel because injuries, but near the line of scrimmage, and that's what he's more comfortable doing. That's what he did at Illinois, and may not get that opportunity here.
What do you see on Tristan McCollum? I happen to think that Tristan
Crash
McCollum
Bandicoot, by the way, Crash Bandicoot is who Reed can.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. He might have said that on his pod. I forget where he said that.
No, we were interviewing him last week. He called him. Well, he might have said it on his pod too, but he called him Crash Bandicoot.
Interesting.
Video game fans.
What do you expect of Tristan McCollum, John? Vic Fangio name dropped him. He was the backup safety last year. I happen to believe he's going to be the backup safety this year over Sidney Brown. Now, I don't know why I feel like that. I just feel like that. I feel like he does more of what Vic wants him to do. And Sidney, as you just pointed out and talked about extensively, I don't know if he plays the type of way that Vic wants him to play. What do you think on Tristan McCullum? And then you can even add some comments on the guys like Lewis Seen if you want. I know they're back end guys, probably little path to starting.
Yeah, I think Tristan got a chance to play last year a little bit. I think he started 2 games and he was okay. He held down the fort. Didn't make a lot of plays, but didn't make a lot of mistakes. And that's why I talk about being disciplined and doing your job and doing what you're supposed to. So I think that's where he opened Vic's eyes and said, all right, I can count on this kid. It's not the biggest playmaker in the world, or he hasn't been to this point. But he's got good range. He's far rangier than both of them, Makuba and Sidney Brown. He's probably 6'2", somewhere close to. So that's pretty lengthy for a safety. And as I mentioned, did a decent job. Not a great job, but a decent job when he was forced into the lineup. So I think there's a bit of a comfort level there. And that's why Vic kind of threw him into the mix. But I don't think he's really in competition with the other two who've gotten by far the most first-team reps. The first practice, Reed wasn't. The first OTA practice, Reed wasn't there. So there were a lot more first-team reps. And often Brown and McCuber would have lined up together. And then when Reed was back, it was basically Sidney got more as the more the veteran player, and then Drew would mix in. And then you got a handful with Tristan and even Andre Sam and Lewis Seen, but not with Reed. So Reed would sort of rotate out. Like when Reed was on there, it was only Sydney and Drew. And that indicates to me that, you know, they're the ones in competition. Now, Tristan's going to be here as a backup special teams player. But I don't think he's going to be in that competition unless the other two completely just go off the rails.
Let's get an honorary mention, John, as we talk about safeties on. Crawley says, add some comments on my dude, Maxon Hook. Little honorary.
Yeah, I mean, Quignon's former college roommate at Toledo, one of the higher profile undrafted guys, not a big undrafted class for the Eagles this year because they had so many draft picks, but he's one of the higher profile ones. Tough numbers game for him, but if they're going to keep 4, it's going to be very difficult for him to make the 53. If they keep 5, he could beat out Lewisine and be the 5th guy. I don't know if they're going to keep 5, but certainly practice squad upside at the bare minimum, I think he'll be on the practice squad. Starts out like all undrafted guys, 3rd team. And you got to work your way up from there. Reed did it. It's possible.
Yep, there you go. It's a good comp there. Johnny Mac staying on that secondary. Let's move to that cornerback spot. Cooper DeJean is like, he's like the most important piece right now because the guy can move anywhere. That seems to be how Vic is using him. Wherever I'm weak, I'm going to put Cooper DeJean basically. But in the base package, he's going to play on the outside. And then in some snap, and then obviously in that nickel, he'll be moved back inside. Now, when DeJean isn't with him, you got Keeley, you got Adoree playing at the right opposite Quinyon Mitchell. How do you see that shaking out that competition, and what are you looking to see in minicamp?
Well, I think minicamp is just the starting process, so we've already seen it, and it's been mainly Cooper outside in base, which I hate to call base, but
I know, but I don't know what else to call it. So
yeah, well, that's what they use, so you got to use it. Unfortunately, I'm going to lobby Vic to stop using that, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Let me know if you make any progress on that.
I might, because
you might. I agree. Vic might be like, you know what? You're right. We play this shit. We barely play this. This isn't.
Well, he already says that. I mean, he's the one who said they played it 160 times last year in 21 games. 160
Why
times.
do they call it base then? Literally just because it's a first down?
Because it's always been that way. Like big nickel. Like I used to have this argument. Like Jody would say correctly, by the way. Why do they call it big nickel? Because it isn't, it isn't nickel, it's dime. And I'm like, well, that's what they label it as. That's what they call it. And it's the same thing here. Years ago, it was the base defense. And so it carried over. And people still use the term base to describe, 4-3, which there's never 3 linebackers on the field. Right. And that's just the way they do it. And it's a pet peeve of mine because the base is actually the nickel now. But nickel's nickel. And nickel's been nickel for a million years, and it's probably not going to change. But yeah, already behind the scenes, like Vic's the one who volunteered the information because everybody was making a big deal out of Cooper playing outside. He's like, literally asked us, do you guys know how many times we were in base last year? And it was 160 or thereabouts. That's it. So basically 8 times a game.
Yeah, right. Right. What do you get? 60 to 70 snaps a game or some 55 to 65, somewhere in that range. Yeah. You're playing 8 of them a game in base. That's not base to me, John. We'll see what ends up happening.
Yeah, but the reality, 2 things. It tells you what they believe about Cooper and that he's just a phenomenal football player that can play anywhere. Corner, nickel, safety. And then it tells you it's more about the other guys than it is about anything else. So, the real competitions we're focused on Drew McCuba versus Sidney Brown. We're focused on Keely Ringo versus Adoree Jackson. The real competition might be like who's better between Drew Makuba and Keely Ringo, or who's better between Drew Makuba playing slot
Right.
and Sidney Brown,
Because that
that
changes
type
what
of
you
thing.
think they do with Cooper, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which Vic flat out said it's dependent on the other guys because he knows Cooper can do all of those things. Now, ultimately, I think it's going to be the default setting, all the stock. He's going to play most of his time in the slot, but we'll see. I mean, that depends on the development of the other guys.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. Still plenty of stuff to think about when it comes to that. And then, John, last spot here on the as we look through this depth chart, I'm expecting to see a lot more Jeremiah Trotter Jr. next to Zach Bond without Nakobe Dean and obviously Jihad Campbell out there. Does that make sense? And if anybody else is emerging, you can let me know.
Oh, no. It's all Trotter. It's the summer of Trotter.
Yep.
He took every first-team rep at OTAs, every single one of them. And I don't think that changes today. I don't think that changes early in camp because Vic let us, Jihad's not going to be ready until August. So he's not going to be ready for the start of camp. Nakobe's not going to be ready probably for a long time into the season. So it's Jeremiah Trotter's job in the short term. And then I think it's all right, who plays Mike and who plays Will? And I asked Vic that question. And, similar to Cooper to a lesser degree, but similar, that's up to Trotter. If Trotter can handle Mike, he'll play Mike. If he can't, Zach will play Mike. So that's where they are at linebacker. But yeah, it would they might if Jihad is not available early in the season, they might even have to go outside the organization to add some depth. Because right now the top backup would be Smile Munden, who's a rookie 5th round pick, and I think a lot of people are excited by him. But again, we can go back to last year's 5th round picks that everybody were excited about. Doesn't often catch on quickly. You don't want those guys to be in there very, very quickly. And then you're down to guys like Dallas Gant, who was on the practice squad last year, another Toledo guy. And then you're down to undrafted players like Lance Dixon, another Toledo guy, by the way. So really thin at linebacker until you get those guys back. And it's going to be a while before you get those guys back.
What's your personal confidence level in Jeremiah Trotter Jr.? Does that give you concern going into the year, or do you feel relatively good about that guy at that position?
No, I think he's going to be a good player. The problem is he had such productive play last year, not only from Nakobe Dean, and obviously Zach Bond, but also Oren Burks. I think people forget you lost Oren Burks as well, who was just rock solid when forced to go in. So, like any young player, I think are going to have some growing pains, but I think Trotter's going to be a good player. And I think he can hold the fort down for 3-4 weeks. And I think that's probably all you'll need, hopefully.
So Daz is sensing something here, John. He says, Devin Trotter, ? They said that about Devin White last year. I'm not following the practice lineups.
First of all, it was you guys talking about Devin White.
They were putting him out there, though, weren't they?
That's the 5th pick in the draft. He was an all-pro. He had 6 sacks in Tampa Bay, yada, yada, yada. He played well in the Super Bowl run, which he did. That was about his only – that was weird, an anomaly. But he played like he was supposed to play in that run to their Super Bowl. Yeah, I mean, this guy's a second-year player. Where's that comp coming from?
I don't know. I think he's just saying stuff in the offseason linebacker, and it might change on a dime.
Well, if you listen to this show, you're on. You knew what was going on with Devin White before anybody else, basically. So, yeah, maybe listen to this show.
Daz does listen to our show. Good stuff. Daz, good stuff. Everybody in the chat, good stuff. Johnny Mac, good breakdown there of the initial I think what are the biggest depth chart questions here coming into minicamp, and then obviously training camp coming up at the end of July. So things are moving right along. Plenty of other stuff that we're going to talk about here today. John, I think it's obvious, and we'll just talk about it real quick before we get to our first commercial break here. But I think it's obvious what the biggest hole coming into camp is for this team this year with the edge rushing room. When you lose Brandon Graham, you'll lose Josh Sweat, and obviously you replace it with, let's be real, a whole lot of, I don't know, nothing burgers, nobodies, Timus, hopeful.
Go.
I mean, let's be real though. That's the truth. That's what those players are. By the way, the players sign the contracts too. Like they know that that's what they're worth right now. So they got to prove it to themselves. They got to prove it to the team. I think the edge rusher, John, is this year's biggest hole coming into camp. I think last year was probably wide receiver 3, maybe.
Well, I don't think. Well, wide receiver 3 is not that important, especially with this.
No, it's not. But remember, they did trade for Dotson, late in the process. I think maybe because there was obviously a glaring hole there.
Yeah, but obviously this is an important role to say, which it's kind of surprising the Eagles are willing to go into a season, and I think that's why a lot of people hang on to the hope that Trey Hendrickson's going to be here or insert name's going to be here, because it's kind of hard to believe that this team, with their belief system, is going to count on basically 2 largely unproven players. Nolan did it for half a season. Jalix had a couple flashes late, but comparatively speaking to Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham and even Bryce Hopp, very little demonstrated performance. And then you have actually Azeez Ojulari and Josh Uche have more, to be honest. Very short window for Uche with Ojulari. He had some decent numbers with a bad team, which can be inflated because they're always behind, they're always rushing the passer. So a lot of context to that. But, his numbers were decent, but he was hurt a lot. So I think, one, you have to hope he stays healthy, which is the biggest concern. And then 2, you have to see if those numbers were real, because again, it's a little bit different when you're not just rushing the passer all day because you're losing by 3 touchdowns. So a lot goes into it, but yeah, I don't know how anybody can feel comfortable with that room right now. And if we could get some truth serum to Jeremiah Washburn, he'd probably tell you the same thing.
Yeah, he might. He might, Johnny Mac. Good stuff there. We'll see what ends up happening. John, instead of an over-under, I want to do a before or after. Week 6, Jahad Campbell is contributing on the football field before or after week 6, in your opinion?
Oh, I think it'll be before. I think the Cooper comparison's a good one from the standpoint of Cooper only missed 3 weeks of camp, 20 days of camp, essentially, with a hamstring, with a much less serious injury. Although, it's tough to play corner with a hamstring issue. And the Eagles really didn't, he was playing, but they didn't really give him a bigger role till after the bye week, which was very early last year, week 5. So week 6 was where he started and took off, and really the entire Eagles defense took off at that point, and he was a big part of it. So I get the comparison, but the difference is the Eagles had a veteran player. Now, I know fans didn't like Avonte Maddox, but the Eagles did. And they had a very veteran player that they were very confident in and thought, could hold down the fort until Cooper's ready. I don't see that here. I think there'll be more desperation. I think the easiest way to get him on the field early is as a situational pass rusher. So I think he'll have a role pretty quickly because they'll need him out there, at least in a situational. Now, as far as being the starting linebacker,
right,
I think that might take longer, but I think he'll be on the field in a situational role because they need him, basically.
Right. Yeah, good stuff. We'll see how it all shakes out. Great opening segment here. Minicamp kicks off today, everybody. John, for those just checking in, for those who missed the start of the show, John, just give the rundown on the timeline for today's mandatory minicamp for the Eagles.
Yeah, practice is at 2:45. Nick Sirianni's going to talk before, I think, 2:10-ish. He's typically a little bit late, like the president. So probably be closer. So that's estimated. And then players are going to talk after. It's probably going to be a little bit longer today. Guessing hour and a half, hour 45. So for practice. So probably 4:30-ish, somewhere in that range. Some players will talk. I expect Devontae Smith to be the only definite one because he hasn't been here, but there'll be other guys. Jalen Hurts will probably talk because it's the last day. But
right. Yeah, don't remember what Jalen did last time. It was the last day before the 5-week layoff. He gave us all something to talk about going into the into the layoff last year. Hopefully Jalen doesn't make that same mistake this year.
Yeah, he tends to learn from his few mistakes. By the way, I meant to bring that up. Chris Sims brought out his top 40 list, although it's not a top 40 list anymore. So thankfully, Chris Sims, we can talk about that because Chris Sims is always good. He knows to poke the bear with this fan base.
Good stuff. Let's get to our first commercial break. We appreciate everybody being here. We got a great crowd in here as always. A mandatory minicamp today. Should have a chance to see all the Eagles players. No contract disputes or anything like that. So unless something personal comes up or they're excused, I would expect everybody to be in the building. All right, we'll take our first commercial break. A great breakdown here. We got a great crowd, as I mentioned. Hit that like button for us. Stank Bird Gang's in here. Abe is in here. Daz is in here. Brandon Howard. What's up, Brandon? Twiz the Jigga. Jaquan is back. What's up, Jaquan? Good to see you. Our resident Cowboy fan, Slagger, Chuck Hutton, JT Philly, Eduardo Reza. We appreciate all of you guys. Hit that like button. We'll be right back in 3 minutes here on Birds 365.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Shot Takers and the Tastemakers. Welcome to the Viewfinders, the Thrill Seekers, and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We go the extra mile to lend a helping hand.
Thank you.
We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong. We've been deeply rooted in our communities for more than 85 years. And that connection to members has earned us our spot as the #1 health insurer in the region. So while you look out for your neighbors, know IBX is always looking out for you.
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next?
At Leone & Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, go Birds.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Thrill Seekers and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. It's mandatory minicamp day for the Philadelphia Eagles, the last on-field activity before training camp, end of July. So we are officially, John, you called it the last day of school at the start of the show or pre-show. I forget when it was, but it's bittersweet, John. All right, we got a nice day, one day. I mean, like I said to you at the start of the show, one freaking day. You can't call it mini camp in one day, John. Come on, John. It's got to be multiple days, but we got one day of mini day. That's what I'm calling it, mini day. It's not mini camp.
Yeah, the labeling I agree with, but it makes some sense from the Eagles. They're coming off a 21 game season, and they played obviously into February. So a lot of these teams don't make the playoffs. They're chomping to go. The Eagles had a very difficult season from a physicality standpoint, going that long and all that. So it's a little bit under. Plus, they've had a lot of success with this thought process as a whole. Now you have tremendous turnover as well. A lot of these players weren't even here last year. So, but for the guys that were here, and that's the main contributors, yeah, I mean, they need probably a little bit more of a break than some of the other teams typically. So I get part of it. I get it from both sides. But they're the only team in the NFL with a one-day minicamp. And then in the past, in the COVID years, they derailed, completely erased the minicamp for a couple of years because they wanted as many people to come in for voluntary work as possible. So to get good attendance, they kind of bartered away the minicamp. And then last year it was more of a traditional minicamp coming off the collapse, but again, more understandable because you're trying to adjust coming off a collapse. Now they're coming off a Super Bowl championship. So yeah, I mean, and the veterans, the Lane Johnsons of the world, the Saquon Barkleys, they don't need this stuff. No,
mandatory day camp. I'm calling it daycare. One day daycare for everybody down at the Novacare complex. Good stuff, Johnny Mac. I do want to bring up one thing before I have a take.
Oh, by the way, we're talking edge rushers. TJ Watt and Trey Hendrickson both did not show up to their mandatory minicamp. So let the speculation begin.
They are pouring cooking up in the stew on the stove, Johnny Mac. That thing is heating up. We'll see what happens with Trey Hendrickson and TJ Watt. I don't know if the Eagles would make a move for those guys. I don't think so. I'm more in the John McMullen camp on those guys. But we will see. It brings me to my next point, though, John. I did want to bring back up Jaire Alexander. All right. I know we talked about it yesterday. I know he's not a zone corner. I know the fit probably doesn't make sense. But why do I still feel like the Eagles and Howie Roseman are thinking about Jaire Alexander? And I point to Slay. Now, I know Slay was willing. I know Slay had the right mindset to do it. I know Slay is a little bit of a rare breed mentally and obviously athletically as well. But I think Jair Alexander would become a zone corner to play in Philly, and he'd be our best cornerback right away, and it would significantly improve the secondary. Am I crazy, John?
Well, no, from a football perspective, no. I mean, he's a good player. Very good player. One of the best corners in the NFL when he's healthy, which has, that's one of the issues. He's never been healthy. He's 3 of the past 4 years he's missed significant time. But he's still young. You would somebody's going to talk themselves into Jair Alexander saying, that injury worm is going to turn. But to me, it starts with money, and look, if it's evident he was going to make about 17 million with Green Bay, and they wanted to, because of those injuries, they wanted to Dallas Goddard him basically, and take a little less money to come back, and the basic thought process from Jair's camp is no, we'll get more money on the open market. And if they get, I'm just guessing, I'm spitballing, but if you use Dallas, maybe you want to take a 5 million pay cut because he's a little bit higher, and you want him at 12 million. And his thought process, his camp's up, no, we're going to get more than that on the open market, which I think they're right. And the Eagles don't want to pay that kind of money. They this off season. You've seen, are they gonna veer off course in June?
Yeah, doubt it.
I don't think so. I don't think so. So the only way, to me, Jair Alexander gets in the mix in Philadelphia is if that money they think is there is not there. And I don't think that's happening. I think there are enough cornerback desperate teams to get them up to probably 15 million. And again, I could be wrong, but I 1 year, 8 million, sure.
Yeah, which let's be real, that's not what Alexander's about to get.
If you wanted to pay Jair Alexander, why not just run it back with Darius Slay?
Yeah, right. I agree.
Now, you can say Slay's older, true, but he played at a much higher level last year because of injuries for Jair. The Eagles know him; he's a team captain. They know what kind of teammate he is. Why not just run it back 1 year with Slay?
What do you think Jair's going to get?
Spend that kind of money at the cornerback, but which they don't. And
what do you think he's going to get right now? I don't think he gets the full 17.
No, but I think I said 15. That's my guess.
15. All right, I didn't hear you. My bad.
That's my guess. 15.
Any ideas where you think any teams that stick out to you as a good option?
Buffalo was sniffing around him when they were thinking about trading for him. So they have to be an option. I think you look in the division. I think all 3 teams in it, there tends to be division envy. So I think Detroit, which needs corners, Minnesota, which badly needs corners, and even Chicago, who I think has the best corner, but they need a second one. I think there's division envy. So those are the 4 teams I look at first. But it's interesting because, I get odds sent to me all the time from Jimmy Shapiro. And sure enough, Jair Alexander's next team, the odds, San Francisco's number 1, 9-2. Miami's number 2, 5-1. That's because of Jalen Ramsey.
Right.
And he's not going to be there, which Jair has replaced Jalen in Philadelphia. But, if anybody who knows Jalen Ramsey's history with Vic Fangio probably knows that's not a fit. And third, the Eagles. And I'm sitting there, that's just the nature of it. The Eagles are always at the top of these stupid lists. They think they're bringing in everybody.
Well, that's betting. It's always a good bet, John, to bet that the Eagles will be in the mix. That's the truth, So I'm not surprised that they're up there.
History, but this year it's not a good bet because, again, you can look at what they've done because the vast majority of talent gathering season of Howie Roseman is over. So there's a big history, and there are, I got to count them up again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 free agents, 12 free agents. Not one of them got more than 1 year, and not one of them got more than $3.5 million. This year, it's not a good bet.
No, it's
other
not.
years
coming, but I just wanted to bring it back up because I did think about the potential of him maybe becoming a more zone.
As a football player,
it gives you a little bit of a longer shelf life. At least I feel like it does. You know what I mean? Where you can stick in the league longer.
There's two different parts of it. As a football player, he can help anybody. He can help anybody. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. He can help anybody. So, I mean, and I get it. That's all fans care about for the most part. But there are other factors, unfortunately. And that's for everybody. From a pure football standpoint, if money was no object and you didn't have to worry about Jaylen Carter down the road and Nolan Smith and even Reed Blankenship and Quinyon and Cooper, and none of that was even on the horizon, you just go out and pay Trey Hendrickson $30+ million or TJ Watt and bring them in, or Myles Garrett way back before when Myles wanted to come here. Let's be honest. Eagles, that's how we said, with the Eagles love Myles Garrett. Everybody does, but they're objectively head over heels in love with that particular player. And Howie even said, yeah, we'd love to have him, but we're not in a position to do it.
I feel like it's reciprocated. I feel like Myles loves the Eagles too.
I just said Myles wanted to play here.
Yeah.
Myles wanted to play here. It's Howie said it's not financially. We're not in a position to do that right now. He basically said it. Now, he doesn't talk about players under contract. He basically said, we'd love to have any player like that, but we're not in a financial position to do it. He's not lying, is it? Yeah, I'm not saying Howie tells the truth in public 100% of the time, because he doesn't. But his actions back that up, as I just explained. Their entire free agency, we dubbed it the Temu offseason because it's been the Temu offseason. They are getting their ducks in a row for other things down the road. And is that going to change on June 10th? And they're just going to all of a sudden wake up? Howie Roseman's all of a sudden going to wake up and go, F the discipline. I'm going to go get Jair Alexander and Trey Hendrickson. I would not put high betting odds on that.
No, but if he did, holy shit, we would have some shows here on Birds 365. Good stuff, everybody. Appreciate everybody being here. John, this is one of the things I've been thinking about. Moving off of those players that are speculative, let's go back to the players who are in the building. We talked a lot in the opening segment about the depth chart and some of the positions where you have questions. And I think those are all fair, fine, and dandy to talk about and be consumed with. I don't think they're the key to the defense this year. I think the key to the defense this year is actually on your young guys who were so important to your team last year, continuing to get better. They have one of the youngest teams in the league this year. They lost Brandon Graham and Darius Slay, probably the two parents of the defense, if you will, for lack of a better word. And now they're putting all their eggs, John, in Jaylen Carter, Zach Bond, Cooper and Quinion, even Jalix Hunt, Nolan Smith, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., all of these guys who I think in order for this defense to be good this year have to take another step forward, more so than I think Andrew Makuba needs to be an incredible safety. We need that too, or we need him to at least be competent. But I think all these guys who had a good year last year need to take another step forward. I mean, John, I said this yesterday. Objectively speaking, you could go outside of Philadelphia and someone would say about Zach Bond, yeah, let me see it again. Right? I mean, 1 year. I've seen a lot of guys be good 1 year. Now, me and you watched every single game, every single snap of Zach Bond. We probably think he's going to be good, and I think rightfully so. But it wouldn't be unfair for somebody to say that about Zach Bond. I think all of those guys, John, need to have a much better year in order for this defense to remain competent. Am I off base?
Well, no, I mean, obviously you got to have good players. Before I get into that, I want to, because Jeffrey Lurie, and I want to say it's just given, it was announced, obviously, he's given a $50 million gift to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, so CHOP, to create what's going to be called the Lurie Autism Institute. And obviously that's been very close to him, and as far as what the Eagles do for autism, and his brother's living with autism, so it's very close to him. So anyway, $50 million gift from Jeffrey Lurie to CHOP.
That deserves a clap for sure. That's incredible. That's big money right there, and to a great cause. He continues, obviously, the what he's done for autism, which is, can't deny that about Jeffrey Lurie. He does a lot for those people, for others, and that's great stuff right there, John. $50 million to CHOP.
Yeah. So well done by Jeffrey Lurie, and that's, he's embraced this community. We joke a lot. He's a Boston guy. He tried to buy the Patriots before he bought the Eagles. But I think it's now time to call Jeffrey Lurie a Philadelphia guy. But and he still likes the Celtics. Yeah, given $50 million.
It's not like the Sixers have given him.
Well, that's true. But anyway, yeah. So well done by Jeffrey Lurie, and it obviously has a lot of money, but $50 million, you don't have to do that. So to do that for what is something that drives him, and he's very focused on charity. I think he deserves credit for a mention for that, to say the least. So well done by Jeffrey Lurie, and that kind of brings up some of the things. I always joke about the Eagles facility compared to other facilities around the NFL, and it's not like he's not willing to spend money on things. He wants to keep the team in Philadelphia. And by that, I'm not talking about playing it. Obviously, they're going to play in Philadelphia. I'm talking about on a daily basis. He wants to keep, even though he can go to the suburbs. Please come to South Jersey, Jeffrey. He can go to the suburbs, get all kind of tax breaks, build one of these glorious facilities. And he's kept the team there because he wants to keep them there. So anyway, that's a tangent, but well done by Jeffrey Lurie. And about the defense, as you were saying, yeah, I mean, you can't, as good as Vic Fangio is, you can't have the number one defense without guys playing at a tremendously high level, as players like Zach Bond and Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and Jaylen Carter as the most talented player. I think it all starts with him. You can't do it. And Vic's been, for all the talk, and as I said, what tells you that Vic is the best at what he does is how many copycats there have been. So there's not only a long history with Vic Fangio, but there's a long history with people who run his style of defense. And they're not all just magically good. Even Vic's own incarnations of the defense. He doesn't have the number one defense every year. And Vic will be the first one to tell you it's about the players first. And the Eagles were good last year because the players were good. And so yes, they need. And when you talk about career seasons, to use Zach Bond as an example, it's going to be very difficult to replicate what he did last year. Just the nature of it. You know, if you look at Fred Warner, who is universally regarded as the best linebacker in the NFL, and rightfully so, some years are better than others. And there's, you know, he's a great player through them all, and that's what you're hoping with Zach Bond. But it's going to be tough to duplicate what he did last year. It's going to be tough for Cooper to duplicate what he did last year. It's going to be tough for Quinion to duplicate. Jaylen Carter, I think he's only going to get better.
Yeah,
so there's certain, you know, but yeah, I mean, they were phenomenal. You know, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to replicate it.
I happen to think Jaylen Carter is still the most important one because if he continues to dominate, I mean, did you hear, John? Did you happen to hear the Jeremiah Trotter? We might have talked about that. It all runs together. We might have talked about Jeremiah Trotter was said about Jaylen Carter on not Jeremiah Trotter Jr., his father, former Eagle, said on the radio.
Yeah, Vic got asked about it. He said he basically doesn't even know what he's doing yet. And Vic cleaned it up a little bit and said, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of room for growth. Just from learning how to play the game.
Right.
And becoming more savvy. So I think there's something to that. I always say that it's been a while since the Eagles, and Fletcher Cox is a borderline Hall of Fame player. And I think you can make a strong argument that Fletcher belongs in the Hall of Fame. But the Eagles haven't had a talent at this level in a very long time. To where you can say, you probably have to go back to Reggie, to where you can say you might have the most dominant defensive player in the NFL. At least that upside is there. He's not there yet, but that upside is there. Which is why I'm constantly disgusted at the Chicago Bears for passing over him twice.
A lot of teams passed. Didn't other teams passed on him too? Why do you rip the Bears? I guess because they did
it twice. Like I get it. In fact, I've said it. They had the number one pick. And I said that's fine. You know, I get you can't take him at number one. Coming off what happened, you can't take him at number one. I didn't have any problem with that. Now, they probably thought they went down far enough where they wouldn't have to worry about it again, but he kept falling because other teams are scared of their own shadow. And, you know, then they had an opportunity to get him again at whatever, 9, I think.
Yeah.
And then they said, no, we can't do it. And they let the Eagles jump up to one spot to get him. All right. The Eagles just won a Super Bowl. You're all morons.
Ryan Poles could be like a 5-time Super Bowl winner and resurrect the entire city of Chicago, and Johnny Mack will still be ripping him about passing on.
Well, and you're right. It's not only him, but you know they did it twice. And after you get to meet Jaylen Carter, and that's another part that factors into it. Because I often say, you know, we don't get to talk to draft prospects. So for all the draft people who do a tremendous job, and a lot of them are on this show, and you know who I like and who, but for a lot of they don't have certain information, and they don't have background information. They don't have health information, which are probably the two biggest parts of the puzzle. You know, obviously anybody can get film now. And they can, if you're smart enough and you talk to the right people and you learn how to watch tape, you can decipher the skills of various players. What you can't decipher is that background info, and you can't decipher the health info because you don't have access to it. In the case of Jaylen Carter, I was like everybody else. I'm like, during the draft process, I never met the kid. I don't know him from Adam. I know some of the horrible things going on and what happens. And you say, oh, red flag. Now that I've gotten to meet him, like I said, he's not robbing banks.
Right.
The nicest, most humble kid considering how much talent he has.
I've never met him, but I can see that through the screen. I mean, young kids get money, John. They make some mistakes. Now, obviously, I'm not dismissing the mistake, but I completely agree with you.
No, it's a horrible mistake. But what I'm saying is, as a team, if you get to talk to him, if you get to, and you immediately assume that this is a bad guy, like I don't get.
Right, there's a difference
guy
between a good guy making a mistake and a guy who is inherently a bad dude.
Exactly. So. So that factors into it as well. Yeah, it's just, and not only Chicago, like you're handing, people say, and I tell that story all the time because I was texting a GM the night of the draft, and I texted him about, Carter, what do you think? And I didn't get an answer, and I said to myself, well, he's busy. He'll get back to me when he gets back to me. And he got back to me after the Eagles drafted Nolan at 30 with basically are you effing kidding me? What is this league doing? Letting these players go to Philadelphia. And sure enough, it's like, what are they doing? How do you let these players go to Philadelphia? So as an Eagles fan, you gotta give some credit to these other teams that are scared of their own shadows.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think his upside is, John? I mean, how good can this player be? I mean, the guy already feels like he wrecks games, which he does. He's, we talk about the playoff game all the time. And I still feels like there's so much room for him to grow as a player. What is his upside, John? Is it, dare I say, one of the greatest defensive tackles of all time? I'm not going to say the greatest, but is it in the conversation? Is it below that? Where do you see his ceiling as a player?
His ceiling is best defensive player in the NFL. And like I said, the Eagles haven't had that since Reggie White. Best defensive player in the NFL. That's the potential. And I haven't said that for a very long time with any Eagles defender. There have been a lot of good ones, but they have been in the Myles Garrett conversation. That's the type of dominance that's the type of potential.
Right.
And he was the 9th pick in the draft, and everybody knew he was the best player in the draft. And that was a good draft. Now, obviously, the quarterbacks factor in, and that was the C.J. Stroud year, but Bryce Young year. So the quarterbacks, Will Anderson's a very good player. Devin Witherspoon's a tremendous player, but Bijan Robinson's a tremendous player.
Was that the 23 draft?
Yeah, 23. Yeah. But everybody knew he was the best player. Purely gifted. He was the best player. He's better than all those guys.
Yeah. What's Tyree Wilson doing? Is he a good player and for the Raiders?
That's the Raiders. He's okay, but
7th overall pick, taking 2 picks before Carter. Devin Witherspoon, you mentioned, cornerback there, and he's a good player, but in Seattle, but obviously not as valuable. And then Will Anderson were the other.
I would say the best players in that draft were probably Jalen 1, Bijan 2, Will 3.
Yeah.
And then the quarterbacks. But quarterbacks are always pushed off the board. And then probably Devin. Probably Devin deserves to be ahead of the quarterbacks as well. But, that's
probably put Stroud up there. I mean, above Bryce and Anderson or Richardson, obviously.
Yeah. I just mean as pure quarterbacks are always getting pushed
Right,
up.
right.
If you're talking just about pure football players, it's probably Carter, Robinson, Will, and then Witherspoon, I would say. And then there was a bit of a drop off, ironically, after Carter, because Chicago took Darnell Wright.
Yeah.
I mean, give me a break.
That's not going to help. That's not going to get Johnny Mack off your bag, man. I know.
I
one
love
of my favorite things though is looking back on a draft, because like you remember what people were talking about with Detroit that night. They took Jahmyr Gibbs at 12 and Campbell at 18. I mean, those were two great picks.
Well, and that's more about position too, because like Bijan was position. Our show was Bijan 365 for a while, and the fact that they were drafted as highly as they were, Jahmyr and Bijan, tells you how gifted they are. And it's not about offensive line, because typically I'm a draft the offensive lineman type of guy, but it's offensive line or defensive line. And again, if you're talking about Jaylen Carter versus Paris Johnson or Darnell Wright or Peter Skoronski, come on. And that has borne out early in this career. But the Lions draft was crazy, by the way. Not only did they get Gibbs and Campbell, in the second round they got Laporta and Brian Branch.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Yeah, Brad Holmes, he's been really crushing the drafts.
Yeah, that draft for the Lions, that draft set the Lions up for years to get those four players. Which is pretty amazing group.
Yep, no doubt about it. Good stuff there, Johnny Mack. We'll take a couple questions after our commercial break. We got about 40 minutes left to go here on Birds 365. It's mini camp day. So the Birds have mandatory mini camp, their one and only day of mini camp. We're calling it mini day here on Birds 365. The Birds will do that today. Practice around 2:45. Nick is supposed to speak at around 2:10, but you can expect him at 2:15 or 2:20. Probably be a little bit late, and we'll be covering it here on JAKIB Sports. Johnny Mack, hopefully tonight we can do a football 24/7 too after the practice when John returns. So hopefully we'll do that, and you guys can tune in for that as well on the channel, and we'll be back here again live on Birds 365 tomorrow. We got 40 minutes left to go here on Birds 365. Still plenty of stuff to talk about here on the show. Appreciate you all watching. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Shot Takers and the Tastemakers. Welcome to the Viewfinders, the Thrill Seekers, and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We go the extra mile to lend a helping hand. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong. We've been deeply rooted in our communities for more than 85 years. And that connection to members has earned us our spot as the #1 health insurer in the region. So while you look out for your neighbors, know IBX is always looking out for you.
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next? At Leone & Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, go Birds.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Thrill Seekers and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mack, John McMullen. Give us follows on X at Zander Krause and at JF McMullen. Minicamp kicks off today for the Birds, and then we have about a 5-week layoff, between before training camp. So we'll see. But once training camp is here, Johnny Mack, we are full steam ahead, nonstop through the season, brother. So it's going to come quick.
It's a grind, man. I got to prepare. I'm getting old. It's a grind.
It is a grind, no doubt about it. Johnny Mack, what do you think changes for the Eagles this year with the target now being on their back? Now, I think there was a target before this, but you get over the mountaintop, you beat the Chiefs, you dominate the league, you're the talk of all the conversation. You did it in an unconventional way in the modern game with the way you ran the football and how good your defense was. What do you think changes, if anything, for the approach for the team dealing with that target on their back? They always say, when you're the champs, you get everybody's best, and you're the biggest game on everybody's schedule. So, what do you think changes for the Eagles, if anything, regarding that?
It changes. You're the hunted, not the hunter anymore. You're the Chiefs. You're the team that's getting the best shot, as you pointed out. Everybody's going to get up for the Super Bowl champions. Everybody's going to want to beat them. Everybody's going to want to knock them off. A lot of mediocre teams, that'll be their Super Bowl. Can we beat the Eagles? It's different. It's and you become the number one target, and that's why it's so difficult to repeat, which is a word the Eagles aren't even using this year. They banned that word because they want to be in the moment, so to speak. So but I always said, like last year, if they're that good again, none of it matters. None of it matters. When we went down the schedule, road games, all the stuff you typically do. If you're that good, nothing matters. Nothing matters if you're playing on the road, if you're playing, it'd be a tough travel. You just win. You're better, and you just win. And you win even if you don't play your best football. And that's where they were pretty much from the bye week on, where, they were 6 seconds away from going undefeated, going 17-0 from the bye week on. Are they going to be that same level of team? It's tough to project that considering all the losses. But, I think you see around, PFF still says they have the best roster in football, even with all those losses.
I think they're still the favorite. They're the favorite to win Super Bowl 60 in a couple spots.
Yeah, well, their favorite. The first three, I brought it up. The first three odds for individual matchups are all Eagles. Eagles, Bills, Eagles, Chiefs, Eagles, Ravens. So not that betting odds matter, as we talked about with Jair Alexander. It's just about what people think. But They're set that way for a reason, and then the betters take it over. But everybody thinks this team is still, if not the most talented, certainly in the conversation to be the most talented in football. So, we'll see how it shakes out. Injuries, attrition, obviously number one. But there's no doubt that it becomes more difficult when you're on top because people want to beat you even more. They want to beat you every week, no matter what, but people bring a little bit extra for the Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. They do 100%. They bring more for the team, and we'll see if the Eagles are able to keep that target and use it as fuel to the fire to continue to get to continue to win games, as I think they will. They're still a great football team, obviously. John, who's your thought on the AFC this year? You have any early thoughts on who you think is going to come out of the AFC?
I'm Ravens. It's going to align one year.
You're going Ravens. I'm going to go Bills. I was between Ravens and Bills.
Yeah, I mean, those are the two, and the Chiefs, I think, are kind of beginning the fall off, but we'll see. Maybe that's just recency bias because they just got waxed so badly in the Super Bowl. Did not look like a Super Bowl level team. That tells you how well the Eagles performed. I think Baltimore's been the most talented team in the AFC for a while, and the stars haven't aligned, and they continue to be. And one year, the stars are going to align. And
they do have everything they need, though, man. They got a good team, got a good defense, got great offensive players, got great quarterback, obviously Lamar Jackson, got the right coach. I mean, it feels like they have everything, John, that they need to like you said, the stars align, and that's the last thing you need. But I do feel like they're a good team. I got the Bills, John. I think the Bills are going to go the distance this year. All right, they added Bosa. They added a couple different guys. I think they're going to be a really good team this year, and I've always liked Josh Allen.
Well, you know what, the biggest Bills advantage is their division. But there can be some good and bad to that in the fact that they're not going to be challenged. Like if there's any team, I've already said I'm going to guarantee wins their division, it's Buffalo. Guaranteed, 100%. No doubt. Barring an injury to Josh Allen, but that's always baked in. I mean, literally, Miami's Mike McDaniel's a dead man walking. The Jets probably be a little bit better, but they're
that's the AFC East, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, East.
They're not even close. New England is one of the worst teams in football. They're going to get a little bit better, but with Mike Vrabel, but they got a long way to go.
Stephon Diggs is that's like his retirement team. He went there to have some fun and hold up bags of pink whatever it was on the boats.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about what that was. The NFL doesn't want to talk about what that was.
No, they don't. They don't.
So they're to me that's their biggest advantage. They got a lot of rope to play with, because they're going to win their division pretty easily. And if they're humming and they go 6-0 in their division, which they should. All of a sudden, you're going to be in the conversation for probably number one seed and all that kind of stuff. So they're definitely set up well from just the standpoint of where they play and what division they play. But I don't think they're as good as Baltimore.
They're definitely not. They're not. The team is not as good as Baltimore. I agree with you on that.
And I'm not a big in the ex-Eagles coaches. I'm more of a Harbaugh guy than a McDermott guy as well.
McDermott bothers me, but it is what it is.
I can't get over. I
can't.
It's like Chicago with Jaylen Carter. I can't get over the 13 seconds.
It's bad.
Sean McDermott. I can't get over
it. Is bad. And that's one of the things where it's like, dude, your quarterback did everything. Everybody did everything you needed.
Well, that's why it pisses me off when people say, "Well, Josh Allen never won." Well, maybe he would have if freaking moron could handle 13 seconds.
Yeah, if you had Nick Sirianni, how about that? Nick Sirianni deserves some credit, man. Nick Sirianni doesn't get enough credit, John. You give him credit, but not everybody gives Sirianni credit. I think he deserves more credit for what
Well, he
he's
doesn't
done.
call plays.
What's that?
He doesn't call plays.
Yeah, who cares? John, going back to the NFC side, who do you think are the top 3 contenders right now outside of the Eagles for to compete in this conference this year?
Oh boy. I think Washington's one. I think they're an ascending team. They made the NFC Championship game. I said they weren't ready for it. They proved they weren't ready for it, but they're getting better. So I think they're legitimately one. I think the Rams, who ended up in hindsight being the closest team to the Eagles.
Yep, and they got better this offseason.
I think they're one. And if I had to pick 3, I guess I have to pick Detroit just because of the talent level, even though I think they're going to have some troubles with 2 new coordinators. Now you lose Frank Ragnow. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year, but they're still one of the most talented teams in football. So those would be my top 3. Not necessarily in order. If I had to put them in order, I'd probably put Rams first, Commanders second, Lions third.
What'd you do? You did Commanders, Rams, Lions?
No, Rams 1,
Okay, I
Commanders
was gonna
2.
say I got the Rams 1 too. I think the Rams are going to be really good this year. I think they got much better. I mean, and they got McVay, obviously. They got Stafford, who I think is still one of the best quarterbacks.
Well, the Eagles kind of own McVay, which
they do. What is he, like 1-4 or 1-5?
Yeah, it's not good. But I think they're a good team, and they were really close last year. And who knows? I mean, Matthew's getting very old. At some point.
How old is he? 38?
Let's see. I think he'll certainly be.
He's 37. He just turned 37 in February.
Yeah. So, he's not the player he once was, but
Aaron Rodgers is 41.
Yeah. Well, Aaron's a little bit different, but in my perspective, I mean, I think Matthew Stafford's great, but Aaron Rodgers is for people that have listened to me for a long time, he's one of the best quarterbacks who ever lived.
Yeah.
And I say at his height, nobody played the position at a higher level than Aaron Rodgers. I get a lot of people don't like him personally, but it's hard to. I think people are completely not objective if they criticize him in his prime. And even last year, as I pointed out last week on the show, for some reason we were talking about, probably because the Pittsburgh thing. Last year, but what a hard, you look at his numbers and he's better than freaking 80% of the quarterbacks in his, terrible situation at 40 years old or whatever. So I got a lot of respect for Matthew Stafford as well. It's when I won over Jody, who said he sucked because he was in Detroit with a shitty team. And actually, if you looked at it, because he was with a shitty team, he had 1, 2, 3, 4 years in Detroit over 500, which sounds that's fucking impressive.
Right. With that team before Dan Campbell, that was a bad team, man. Before that was one of the rare trades, John, that worked out for both teams.
Yeah, it did. And I don't think Detroit was expecting it to work out for them, to be honest, but it did. Just Jared kind of took off as well. But, and obviously, the Rams already got a Super Bowl and they were darn close again last year. And yeah, he's just a really good player, Matthew. But I did see a little bit of attrition from his skill set last year, mainly from the movement part of it. He used to, I think people don't realize, he used to move pretty well in his younger days. Obviously, he's not a running quarterback, but he had a lot of mobility, and I think some of that is leaving him.
No doubt about it. John, we got a couple of super chats we got about 22 minutes left on the show today. Appreciate everybody being here. All right, mandatory minicamp kicks off today for the Philadelphia Eagles. Eduardo Reza checks in. What's up, Eduardo? I heard Detroit head coach wanted a pet lion on the sidelines. Is that right?
I have no idea. I can't
Eduardo,
imagine.
everybody wants to be the Eagles, man. The Birds have the eagle fly down before the games. That's one of my favorite things that they do.
Yeah, I have no idea. I can't imagine they would want a live lion on the sideline. A little bit different than
Eduardo might have made that up. I'm not sure.
Even with a bird of prey, you can control an eagle a little bit better than a lion, I would think.
Which is still pretty impressive the way they control that eagle. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Every you'll see it this year. To start a camp, they have 2 eagles, actual eagles, out at training camp for the fans that are allowed. Every year I'll take a picture of them because who's your favorite eagle? Who's your favorite eagle? And I take a picture of Noah or Reggie. That's the name of the 2 eagles. And I say, this is my favorite eagle.
Last year I got close to the TV and was like, is that thing remote controlled? What's going on with that thing? I tried to figure it out, but they are real. They are real. Alfredo checks in. Did y'all see the new AJ Brown with Anaya Smith video? I did not, Alfredo. You want to let me know what it was?
Yeah, I have not. I don't spend a lot of my time watching videos of players chatting together. I tend to want to chat with
Brian says zoology birds 365. Thank you, Brian. Alfredo, let me know in the chat. I'll pull up your next comment. I don't know what the video was. Jason 18, what's up, 18? He checks in. What do you think of the AFC West? Chiefs could wind up 3rd in this division. Chargers and Broncos are a threat. Also, Colts are interesting as well. You're right. It's an interesting division now, a little bit more so.
Well,
9 straight years, John, Chiefs have won that division.
Yeah, I mean they've done. I have to see it before I believe it with the Chargers. They're getting better because Jim Harbaugh is a better coach than they've had, and he's just a guy who figures out a way to win at some point wherever he goes, and then he kind of wears out his welcome. He's that kind of guy. So I do think they're getting better, but you have to see it first. Same thing with Denver. I think Denver's a little bit overrated because a lot of people lean on the reputation of Sean Payton, and obviously Bo Nix had a good rookie season, but I'm still picking the Chiefs to win that division. Colts, yeah, I mean, they don't have a quarterback. It's tough. I root for the Colts because I like Shane Steichen a lot. But I mean, it's Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson's hurt again. I mean, Daniel Jones is your quarterback, most likely. And I think Shane will do a better job with them than the Giants did. And maybe they can get back to that one season where the Giants made the playoffs and it ruined their whole organization because they overvalued a playoff win against Ed Donatel defense. And they made a lot of bad decisions off that. I just don't think Daniel Jones is a top tier starting quarterback. And he's probably better than Richardson. So Shane's kind of screwed from that perspective.
Yeah, I do think Shane will get more out of Danny Dimes than others have. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, low bar from the Giants, but
yeah,
he'll get more out of him than that.
Do you think Danny Dimes has any real talent that can be manifested properly or no?
Well, he's got talent. I mean, he can. He's another guy. He's way more athletic than people realize. He had that big run here. People remember that. It's like a 60-yard run till the turf monster got him. Should have been a touchdown. He just tripped over himself. So even when he does something great, he tends to muck it up. But yeah, I mean, he was whatever he was, 6th pick in the draft. I don't know. Obviously, he's got talent. You don't get drafted 6th by mistake. He's got a lot of talent, but hasn't developed. He had one good year, and again, that was the year that they won that playoff game, and they kind of made a bunch of bad decisions off that. Because remember, when they won that game, it was against a very bad defense, and then they had to play the Eagles next week and just got destroyed. I mean, I forget the score of the game, but it wasn't even competitive. And, from their standpoint, it should have been a wake-up call that said, all right, yeah, we're not as good as we think we are. But instead, they doubled down. They signed Daniel Jones to the big contract, and that set him back again. So, but yeah, I do think Shane will get more out of him than the Giants did. But I just don't think he processes quickly enough. And that's when you don't process quickly in the NFL, it's tough. Like the best example of that is the other New York quarterback, Justin Fields. Obviously, he's got talent.
Right.
Dude processes with a sundial. So, that to me is the biggest issue. But Shane will get him a little bit better. But that's, coaches can only do so much.
Yeah, no doubt. Here's Fredo followed up on the video he was talking about. It was AJ and Anais working out at the link, and AJ's talking to him about the season, and he said his picture on the side of the link lit him up, and he is super hungry and promises to go off this season. Is there a picture of AJ on the link or something?
Yeah, they took down the banners, and they're putting up new banners, and those old banners, it's about time, and they've been there too long. One of them is AJ. They put AJ up. I don't know. I'll be down there today. I'll see if they put up any other new ones. But yeah, I mean, you never have to worry about AJ's hunger or work ethic. He kind of said that after the Super Bowl. It's like, all right, let's get back to work. Right. I mean, that's just his nature.
They got to get him the ball more this year. You agree?
Well, I think they will have to, just by the natural order of things. But I mean, if nobody is able to deter them off what they did last year, they're not moving off what they did last year. But I do think teams will be better prepared to at least better handle the running aspect of it. And that by nature will make it more important to throw the football a little bit more effectively.
I just feel like A.J. Brown is another version of Saquon Barkley. Like if I told you we're not going to get Saquon as many touches as he should have, somebody would say, well, you're stupid. And I would agree. It's like A.J. Brown's the same caliber, get the guy the ball. I don't care if you have to shuffle it to him behind the line of scrimmage. I don't care what you have to do. Get him the freaking ball. He's an unbelievable football player, and he's a dominant player in the league. Get him the ball. Come on. I want 100+ catches for A.J. this year.
Well, he is one of the best players in the league, and I still argue the best pure football player on the Eagles. Yeah, I mean, and Jaylen Carter might threaten that, but not yet. But he might threaten that. But I still think he's the best. And Ed and I will be doing, so I'm ruining it, my top 25 players, but on the Eagles. And I haven't done it yet, but I'm guessing.
I'm going to guess your top 3. You don't have to confirm it yet.
Well, I haven't done it, so I can't confirm.
I'm going to guess what they're going to be. It's going to be AJ 1, it's going to be Carter 2, and it's going to be Saquon 3.
You're probably right on 1 and 2. It's really difficult for me to leave Lane off the top 3.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. Lane and Mailata, John. Even Mailata.
Yeah, and then Jordan as well. There's so many good players. And then people are going to be pissed off because I'm probably going to have Saquon a little bit lower than most people would have Saquon number 1.
Cooper's going to be up there somewhere in the top 10.
They have so many good players. So many good players. And most people get upset because Jalen's not number 1. But it's not most important. Like Jalen's the most important player. I don't do most important because I think that's kind of useless because that answer is always the quarterback. Whether the quarterback is bad, good, mediocre, the most important player for any team The most important player for Indianapolis, we just talked about him, is going to be Daniel Jones. He's not the best player on the Colts, but he's going to be the most important player. Or Anthony Richardson, depending how it works out. You get my point. The most important player on every team is the quarterback. So that to me is not an interesting discussion. Like, who does their job the best? That's how I do it. Who does their specific job the best? I still think that's A.J. Brown on the Eagles. But there's a lot of guys you can make an argument for. A lot of guys. And that is a nice problem to have.
Did you see C.J. Gardner-Johnson was commenting again, John? Not to go back down that road, but he told a reporter in Houston, "I feel highly disrespected." But it's
yeah. He was talking to Aaron Wilson. He went off. That was a couple of days ago. Yeah, he went off.
People say he's a hazard. He's this, he's that. I never been no hazard, bro. They got no real issues on me. That black ball ain't going to work on me because I got me a ring. I got me one. I got 3 more championships in me. I'm probably going to win the next 3. I'm going to get me another Super Bowl this year. Just watch.
Hey, they'll have a chance. That's a team we didn't mention. That's a very talented team.
Yeah, I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem. He's very confident in himself. I have no problem.
But the safety, I mean, a safety doesn't dictate whether you win the Super Bowl. I can help. It's a part of the team, no doubt. But you're not a quarterback.
But I mean, he's there to help them try to win. He knows what it looks like. Which is fair to say. He was here 2 years, and they made the Super Bowl and almost won it, and then they won the Super Bowl.
Right.
And dominated it. So, I mean, I'm not going to shit on CJ as a player.
No, I'm not shitting on him as a player at all. I'm just telling you guys what he said.
And he's going to make plays if he's healthy, and he's going to add something to that defense, which is very good. Their secondary is tremendous. They might have the best secondary in the NFL on paper because they have great corners.
Yeah, they signed a big corner, big slot corner. You got Gardner-Johnson now. Yeah, they got a good team.
Derek Stingley Jr., he's in the conversation. We're talking about corners. He's in the conversation to be the best corner in football. They have a very talented team, but I think nobody believes in them because of their playoff, travails, which.
Well, didn't they win a playoff game in Stroud's year 1?
Yeah, and then they played poorly, and that's all people remember is the last sort of game.
So true.
And when you don't win, and it's like look at Baltimore. Baltimore's the better example. Like they play well, and then they play shitty in the last game, as most people do. When you lose, you don't play well. If you're not the last team standing, I mean, think about the Eagles in the Super Bowl. They played well in the Super Bowl. Arguably outplayed Kansas City. I still say they outplayed them. But they lost the game. And the angst was just unbelievable because they lost the game.
No doubt about it. Johnny Mac, 8 minutes left in the show today. You're heading down there for the mini camp today. Practice 2:45. What's on your mind, John? What do you want to learn? What do you want to ask Nick? What do you want to ask Jalen? What's on your mind as you head down there for the mandatory mini day?
Well, I don't know. I got to think about you got to think about mining information. It's not like Vic. I'll probably spend 2 hours trying to figure out what I want to say to these people to try to get them to talk about anything. Specifically, I'm talking about Nick and Jalen. With Vic, you can just say a name and I'll tell you. With these guys, you have to sort of unearth, try to twist them to talk about something.
Without giving him something he can ramble about for 8 minutes.
Yeah, Nick's case, not Jalen, but
no, not Jalen, Nick, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. Anybody send me some interesting things. We'll try to get it in today, but I'll be thinking about that. I did want to mention, because I didn't set off a bomb before we leave. Chris Sims rankings. Number 10, baby. Jalen Hurts. Number 10.
Come on, who's he got in the first 9?
Well, this came out yesterday. I guess they're doing the top 4.
Let me
today,
look this up.
The top 4 is obvious. It's going to be Josh Allen, Lamar, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, in some order, not necessarily that order, but those are the top 4. Number 5 was Jaden Daniels. Number 6 was Matthew Stafford. Number 7 was CJ Stroud. Number 8 was Justin Herbert. Number 9 was Baker Mayfield. And number 10 was Jalen Hurts. Now, I think everybody goes back to Chris Sims and, years ago when he didn't have him in his top 40. Remember that year?
Yes, I remember that year.
And then over the past number of years, I think he was 7th after the 2022 season, which was too low. That was his runner-up MVP season. And he was 9th after 2023, which is solid. And now he's 10th after winning the Super Bowl. So that's going to set people off. But again, I'm going to defend him a little bit here because, as I said, and I've said, if you look at his whole season, it wasn't his best season. So I don't think he's that far off this time. Coming off last season, coming off last season as a whole, not the final 2 games, as a whole, I think that's a decent spot for him.
Yeah, look, you'll like this comment. Here's Curtis. Curtis says, "Oh no, how dare he name the QB of the 27th ranked passing game the 10th best quarterback? A travesty. I would have him higher, but come on, it's not like he lost his mind."
Well, that's what I said. I'm defending him. Now, if you look at PFF, they had him as 12. He's actually, and remember, PFF counts the playoffs. So if you go back to the regular season, he was probably 18th or 19th. Because he played so well in the final 2 games. And I'm just, I'm doing that. It might have been 15, 16. It was probably 15 or 16. And then he finished 12th. Yeah, I don't think it's bad. I think that's right where he belongs.
Yeah, I think he's a little higher than that. I'm sorry, but Herbert
coming off last season. Again,
what is it about Herbert though? Because he's 6'6". Like I don't understand it. Like
he plays at a high level. He plays at an extremely high level. Last year, I got to look it up now. Dude, that's not the guy to pick on. Mayfield's the guy to pick on.
Mayfield's has done pretty good. I would have Hurts above him, but
last year Lamar was number 1, deservedly so. I think he should have won the MVP again. Burrow was number 2, deservedly. Josh Allen was number 3, deservedly. Justin Herbert was number 4, deservedly. Jaden Daniels was number 5.
John, you take the dial, you turn the light up a little bit, and 4 picks for Justin Herbert. Like I factor that in. I understand that.
I know. Believe me. I know I'm fighting upstream. People,
well, no, you're not. I just don't you factor that in? Like, doesn't a quarterback have to have an intangible ability to seize the moment and handle the moment? Like, isn't that part of being a quarterback?
Sure. I've always given Jalen Hurts credit for his ability to persevere in difficult circumstances. But again, it's more than one game. It's more than one window because every quarterback from now Lamar Jackson on down, or back from Tom Brady on down, or back from Joe Montana on down, every single one of them has had bad games, bad moments, bad situations. Nick talks about adversity all the time. So if you're taking them, and usually, again, even if you talk about Michael Jordan or somebody like that, everybody thinks Michael Jordan is this unbelievable winner, and they're correct. But the reality of the situation is he played for 18 years, won 6 championships, I believe. It's a lot more losing than winning the last game. So if you're going to hold somebody up to, did he win his last game or did he lose his last game? That's easy. Last year, Jalen Hurts was the best quarterback. If that's what you're going to do, the year prior and the year prior was Patrick Mahomes. If that's what
I'm
you're
not
going to
saying
do.
that's the only variable that goes into who's the best quarterback. Jalen winning a Super Bowl doesn't just make him the best quarterback, but that is
A lot of people think that.
A
lot of people think that.
That is an attribute, though, that I think should be more valued. Like Dak Prescott, what a talented dude he is. Great arm, great accuracy, does everything well. He doesn't really do well in the playoffs. He doesn't. That's objectively true.
Well, I think to your point, I find it hard to believe that winning the Super Bowl in any standing, when you're talking about fans, needs to be more emphasized. Like it's way overemphasized. Now, if you're talking about scouts and you're talking about a PFF style grading, you can make that argument, but those are the outliers. Those are the guys that are like trying to figure out who the best players are, not who I mean, winning a Super Bowl is everything in most fans' minds. I mean, that's
but again, I do understand that it doesn't quantify talent. Always. I mean, it's a part of it, but it's not the metric for gauging.
But I was, and I didn't want to get at the end of the show. I didn't want to get here, but it is. I'm saying 10 ain't bad. 10 is where he should be, right in that range.
I think
so. For those who are shitting on Chris Sims today,
higher than that.
He didn't have his best season. Objectively, he did not have his best season. He would be the first to admit
I know
it.
you like Jaden Daniels, but one freaking year, he's got him 6, 5. I mean, come on, 1 year.
It's about, but it's about 2024. How did he play in 2024? Doesn't matter how he played in 2023 because he was in LSU. I mean, there's nothing you can do. All he did is play. He was one of the best quarterbacks in football last year. Top 5 quarterback in football. He had him at 5, I think. PFF had him.
We gotta get Chris Sims on the show, maybe.
PFF had him at 5. It was Lamar, Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Jaden Daniels. That was the top 5 from PFF. And I don't argue, but you can argue who should be. You can argue one should be ahead of the other, or you can juggle but those were the top 5 quarterbacks in football last season. I mean, 2023 with Jaden Daniels is irrelevant other than he's winning a Heisman at, LSU. I mean, you can't, you can only grade on what he's done.
Yeah, and he had a last place schedule with
phenomenal
the first year in the
season.
league. I don't think that's enough to make him the 5th best quarterback in the National Football League. But again, that's fine. We'll talk about it tomorrow a little bit more, Johnny Mac. It's the end of the show. Your final thoughts, John, on mini camp day, mandatory mini day camp is what we're going to call it. Kicking off today. We'll talk to you tonight about it when you see what goes on down there. What do you think, John? Your final thoughts on today's show?
I think there's not much new to learn. I think we got the default settings, so it'll be more about, who performed well. I think it's important to close the spring well for the offense and the quarterback, who I think has had a very good OTAs. We're only talking about 2 open practices, but it's been much better than last year when there was more uncertainty. I think it's important to close out strongly because the last thing you want, although I guess it doesn't matter because there was all this angst coming up of last year's OTAs because of the poor performances, and they won the Super Bowl. So ultimately, what does that tell you? Spring football probably doesn't matter that much. So, but, play of the day, things like that, those are the exciting things for fans. But we know the default setting on the depth charts. We already know it, so this is just sort of putting the punctuation on the spring.
Yep, good stuff. Johnny Mac, appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you tomorrow on a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 and later on today on the Football 24/7. Thank you, brother.
All right, thank you.
All right, there's Johnny Mac, John McMullen joining us here on Birds 365. A great show today, everybody. It's mini camp day. It's mini day camp. They give us 1 day of mandatory camp. I mean, come on. Give us one more day. They're the only team in the NFL with 1 day of mandatory camp. I mean, come on. You got to be kidding me. At the break, I was trying to fix my blind, by the way. I fucking pulled it right off the window. Now I got to fix the blind that's behind me. I pulled it right off the window, everybody. Right in the middle of the break. I mean, you got to be kidding me. And then Chris Sims drops this quarterback list. This list is trash. I mean, I'm sorry. I get what John said. It's not all talent. It's talent, and it's not winning. It doesn't. Oh, okay, fine. Jaden Daniels, C.J. Stroud, Justin Herbert, Baker Mayfield above Jalen Hurts. I mean, what are we doing here? I swear. I think, Curtis, I'm going to bring you up here because I think you're kind of in the middle on this, but I think there's like two sides that happens with Jalen Hurts. There's people who think Jalen Hurts is like this unreal, quarterback. And I agree that he's not, that's not his style. He's a winner. He's not that style. And that's fine if you're not going to fall in that camp. But to put him down at 10, there's like people who are now in the over justification mode of, well, I said he wasn't going to be great. And, he had a running game and all, and they use everything they can to justify their take that he wasn't that great of a quarterback when really the results are far more important than anybody's opinion. Mine, J-Max, John, Sims, Curtis's, and everybody else's. And the dude just keeps winning. Like, how do we quantify a good quarterback? Is it really like Justin Herbert? That's it. That's all you need to be is 6'6" and have a big arm. I'm sorry. I haven't seen anything from Justin Herbert that he should be above Jalen Hurts other than hype. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. I really do. I'm sorry. I think people have gone way too far with the, well, Jalen has a good team. Dude, you're still the quarterback of the team, man. All right. I don't get it, but whatever. It is what it is. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I know there is an element to it that's clickbait. All right. There is an element to it that they put Jalen there because they know Eagles fans will react, which is fine. I'm not either, Curtis. No way. Shady says, Jalen's a really good quarterback. His flaw is holding the ball too long. If he can get past that, he's elite. Well, Shady, I do think is that a flaw, Shady, or is that a habit? Because he's been such a great runner his whole life. He ran around people a lot his whole career. I watched it in college, even in the pros, dude. He gets pressure off the edge, boop, steps outside, skirts to the outside, makes a play from the outside. So I think a little bit of his habit. You know what I mean? I think it's more habit because, and you're not wrong that he does hold the ball too long, and whether it's habit or not doesn't really matter. But I do think it's a habit because of his other traits. They've kind of created that habit where other quarterbacks, like just to use Brady or any pocket passer, like their entire career has been you got to get the ball out before pressure gets to you. Jalen's hasn't. Pressure gets to him, he sidesteps, moves out of the way. In some cases, he, puts a juke on and runs it to the house. Like he has such a different skill set that I think you can't deny. But I hear you. I don't think what you said is unfair. Dank, exactly. All right, exactly. What makes him great with holding the ball adds to him holding it too long. I agree 100%, Dank. Shady says, that's my issue. If he's missing open receivers because he's looking for a running lane, well, Shady, again, it's partly his habit. And to say that those runs haven't borne fruit for the Philadelphia Eagles would also be negligent. I mean, do you want him to hit the receivers because you think it'll make the team better? Or do you want him to hit the receivers because you'd rather have a high-powered passing game? Because that running game that you speak of, if I remember correctly, he had a 55-yard rushing touchdown in the playoffs, right? Like, I hear you, but I think what he does is also very helpful for the team as well, and it shouldn't be neglected. All right, I don't think so at least, but I hear what you're saying. I mean, you got to get the ball out. I think he's going to take a big step forward in that this year. Remember, guys, last year was his first year calling things at the line of scrimmage. That's insane, and that's because we had Jason Kelsey. I want to win. Thank you, R. Anthony. Philly Don, what's up, brother? Member for 9 months. Good to see you in here, Philly Don. I've been missing you, brother. He says, great show today, Zander and J-Mac. Busy as hell, but still listening every morning to Birds 365. Thank you, brother. Philly Don, we love you, brother. You're part of our family here on JAKIB Sports. And Tell King James I said what's up. Hope he's doing well. And I hope you're doing well, Philly Don. Thank you, brother, for being here. All right. Thank you for being here. He was great at it by the playoffs. Yes, he was. Brandon, how about that first run? Remember Saquon Barkley takes it to the house against the Commanders, NFC title game. Watch Jalen at the line of scrimmage. Walks up, checks into another play, looks back up. Defense makes an adjustment. He checks back into the running play, and Saquon Barkley runs to the house. He's untouched for 30 yards on that run. There's that. Who's that Commander content creator? There's a video of him online. He's just watching it. You know? So I think Jalen's getting a lot better at that stuff. Super Bowl MVP we're talking about. No doubt, Yepa. No doubt, brother. My thinking is it puts the defense on their heels more if the offense is more balanced. Well, Shady, how do you explain last year? I mean, the defense was a lot of things last year. On their heels is not one of them. They weren't on their heels much last year. They gave up 17 points a game. You know? Jimbo says, Xander, would you look into the Jags about Trayvon Walker? They didn't sign him, just pick up his 5th year, I believe. I'd make the call, Jimbo. I'd make the call. What do you want to pay him, though? You know, is it $25 million? And then does it stop you from paying Nolan Smith? You know, how's that fit in with the defensive guys you have coming up? I think that's the biggest question there. But I don't hate the call. 4for4 says, people judge Hurts by completely different things than everybody else. They don't want him to hold the ball, but don't want to give him credit for not throwing its. I agree. And Zeal with a Diddy comment. Come on, Zeal. Brandon says, what I love most about Jalen said after the Super Bowl, if the scrutiny is what it takes to win a Super Bowl, keep it coming. It's so true, man. So true. All right. Oh, okay. Gotcha, Shady. The opposing defense. Yeah, I think it would. I think it'd put pressure. But again, we did have an unprecedented running attack last year. So the opposing defenses, while they might have succeeded in some areas, they certainly didn't succeed in all areas. Abe says, Xander, we really either have to go with what we got at edge, or we're going to have to pick up someone like Trayvon or Watt, maybe Von Miller, but it's looking scarce in the open market. Abe, I think this is what it's going to – Abe, I think there's a better chance at this, brother. And I hope you're doing well, by the way, Abe. One of my favorite dudes in the JAKIB chat. I appreciate you, Abe. I think it more looks like this. Think last year, Abe, wide receiver 3. You know, remember pre-camp, we had Anias, we had Johnny Wilson, we didn't really have a wide receiver 3. And I'm not saying John Dotson's this great player, but what they did to acquire that player wasn't trade for a guy that was about to get paid big money. It was a guy in a rookie deal, a guy who kind of didn't really work where he was, and a guy that they could get for a decent price, a good, decent compensation, bring him in, keep him on the rookie deal, and fit him in. Like, I think there's a better chance of that happening. Now, I don't know who that is. All right. I don't know who those players are. Is there even anybody like that? I don't know. Maybe you send a 4th-round pick for Trayvon Walker and it's a 1-year deal. You don't even extend him. You just play him on the 5th-year option. You know, you get 2 years with him. He's got that 5th-year option. I don't know. Abe, I just don't see Trayvon or Watt. Like, Trayvon's going to get paid $25 to $30 million. Now, again, you could do what I just said. Maybe bring him in as a rental and not pay him. Probably going to be tough to do. TJ Watt's going to make $35 million. I don't know. The edge position. So good stuff, man. I think they believe Nolan and Hunt will take on the load of BG and Sweat, and the Temu mercenaries will supplement what Hunt and Nolan did last year. That's a big ask, my friend. Did I freeze again? You gotta be kidding me. Am I back? Let me know when I'm back. I should be back now. Am I back, you nerds? Am I back, you nerds? I'm back. All right. Thank you, nerds. I think they'll believe Nolan and Hunt will take on the load of BG and Sweat. It's a pause, no Diddy. And the Temu mercenaries will supplement what Hunt and Nolan did last year. That's a big ask, though, my friend. I mean, Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt combined for 6 sacks in the playoffs last year. All right. All right. I don't know. You know, like I like the thinking right on the bench, but that's pretty uphill battle. Like Nolan and Jalen were good last year. Now I hear you. It was limited. It wasn't a full-time role. And maybe the mercenaries can be that. But you're also putting a big reliance on Nolan and Hunt to take on that, that what BG and Sweat did. All right. Because I don't want to say load again. All right. All right, everybody. It's minicamp day, man. Stay locked in. I'm going to be live again tonight with John, all right? I'm not letting him off the hook, all right? We're going to be live again tonight, and then we'll be back in the morning on Birds 365. So we will get a breakdown after on the channel of the mandatory minicamp, what Johnny Mac saw, what he heard from Nick, Jalen, whoever speaks today, and then what he saw on the Come on, man. Y'all got to pause. Yo, riding the bench. That was you, bro. Watch Uche Kuchi at 10 sacks. I did say Uche. I like Uche more than Ojulari. My internet keeps going out. I don't know who Kristen Bell is. Fix your internet. It's like 10 o'clock every day. It starts going out. I don't know what's going on. Fix your internet, my boy. Eduardo, worry about your own problems. Plenty there to keep you busy. All right? Plenty there to keep you busy. All right? I was about to say something funny, and now I forget what it was. Yeah, I blame you guys. G. Santos says, Z got that cricket Wi-Fi. Yeah. It's because you're a gray, Santos. Maybe if you weren't a gray, I could get the better Wi-Fi. Eduardo says, my internet ain't one of them. Yo, fuck you, Eduardo. I'm just kidding, brother. I love you. You're not in Cali, are you? No. Do I look like a Cali guy to you, Lucius? I'm not in Cali. When they lose, it's because of him. When they win, it's in spite of him. I'll take the winning in the Super Bowl. Keep knocking at Jalen. That's a good take. All right. That's a good take. Philly Don says, I'm not too concerned with what we have right now. Vic will put them in positions to have success. Hunt will be a beast along with Smith. That's an optimistic Philly fan right there, Don. Is this Starlink? No, it's not Starlink. We can all blame G. Santos. Whenever I freeze, you blame Santos. Okay? Whenever I freeze, blame Santos. All right, everybody. I'm out of here. I appreciate it. I'm so glad to be out of Cali right now. Are you a Cali guy, Curtis? Are you a Cali guy normally? I feel like we got a lot more Cali guys than I thought. Like Abe isn't a Cali guy, but he acts like a Cali guy. I'm just kidding, Abe. I'm just kidding, Abe. For 20 years? Oh, good. God bless you. God bless you. I'm just messing with you, Abe. Abe will be taking shots at me now for a week straight. Who's shittier, our edge room or Z's internet? Our edge room. Internet's fine. Stop bitching, Fleming. I smoke like I'm from Cali. There you go, Abe. You got something going. You got a little Cali in you. You got a little Cali in you. Froze again. I'm not froze. I'm not frozen. JT Philly, get out of here, man. All right, I'm getting out of here. Yeah, JT Philly, that was your internet. Look, you guy says froze again and back now in a span of 8 seconds. That doesn't even work like that, JT Philly. Back off. All right. Good night. It's internet. You know why? It's because I'm on a laptop down here, and normally I have a desktop that I hardwire, and I'm not hardwired. That's why. That's why, guys. I'm not hardwired. And here come all the internet detectives. This is what you have to do. You're hardwired. You did it. I know. You nerds. Shut up. I mean, come on, man. Go talk to Curtis or go talk to Eduardo about something. All right? All right, I appreciate all you guys. Hit the like button, man. We got mandatory day camp today. Daycare. Or daycare at the NovaCare. It's daycare at the NovaCare. One day. That's stupid, man. All right? I appreciate all you guys. Hit the like button. Comment your thoughts. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Here's dumbass Zeal. He couldn't let me finish. 2 words. Ethernet cable. Thank you, Zeal. IQ of 77. Checking in. Thank you, Zeal. Appreciate all you guys. Hit the like button. See you next time on Birds 365. Blame G Santos and 77 IQ Zeal. Thank you.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.